Let's start with For Your Consideration. Let me start with clearing my throat. The new movie by Christopher Guest, who I really, am a big fan of. Ever since Spinal Tap, I've liked him. But it's the films that he direct that I really, really love. He made Best in Show. He made Waiting for Guffman. He made A Mighty Wind, which, of course, you own the soundtrack album to.
I did indeed buy that.
And that's a great soundtrack album, isn't it? I mean, it's a proper folk album that just
it's of a particular type.
It's sort of Main Street Singers.
Yeah, the kind of folk of the New Christie Minstrels and all that nonsense.
That's right. Never Did No Rambling. And, Eat at Joe's. I mean, Old Joe's Place is just a wonderful thing. And, of course, if you remember from the Oscar ceremony, was it either last year or 2 years ago when they performed Kiss at the End of the Rainbow with Mitch and Mickey, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking. Anyway, so the deal is he has a sort of basic ensemble cast that he gets together. He sort of tells them what their characters are, and they do a lot of research in their characters, and then they do improvisation. They sort of then structure everything, but it basically comes out of group improvisation. The latest film, For Your Consideration, which is released obviously around the time of an award ceremony, is about a small independent movie about which, for completely spurious reasons, an Oscar buzz begins. Now, Christopher Guest says that this story has its basis in the fact that he once was working on a movie, and he was working with an actor who suddenly got the whiff that he might have an Oscar buzz behind him. And he said he became, if it was possible, even more obnoxious, even more conceited, even more stupid than he was before. In the case of this, what happens is that this movie, Home for Purim, which is a little small Jewish sort of family drama, gets this Oscar whiff. The next thing, all the cast start getting ideas above their station. But, perhaps more importantly, the studio, as personified in this case by Ricky Gervais, steps in and tells them, we really love your movie, that's why we've got to change it. One of the things that I think that Christopher Guest does with his cast is they play close to character, in as much as they all have certain personas, and they don't go that far from them. And in the case of Ricky Gervais, he's obviously told him, do that in the manner that you do it. Now, Ricky Gervais, as you know, thinks that Christopher Guest is his kind of comedy icon. In fact, there was a big television interview with him over Christmas when Ricky Gervais was clearly completely enamoured of Christopher Guest. And I think Christopher Guest is absolutely brilliant. And here he's surrounded himself with his usual cast, including Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, and Ed Begley's in there, and Harry Shearer, who we had on the programme, of course.
Yep.
And it's good. Now, my reservations are this. With most Christopher Guest movies, you have to see them quite a few times to really understand how good they are. I mean, the first time I saw Best in Show, I thought it was funny. The second time, I thought it was funnier. By the third time, I decided that, dog showing was just about the funniest thing it was possible to do. And I pretty much continued in that state until A Mighty Wind came along, and I suddenly developed a love of the new minstrel singers and, that whole folk scene, which I'm not interested in at all. In the case of For Your Consideration, I laughed, but I laughed in that way that you do with some of the Chris Guest things, that you sort of, you chuckle and you smile and you squirm, but it's not belly laughs. Now, that's not to say that after about 10 or 15 viewings, which I will undoubtedly give it won't get a lot better. But at the moment, it's not his best work. I mean, I think it's a very good piece of work, and certainly in comparison with the other stuff that's out this week, it is, head and shoulders above the rest, because it has wit, it has invention, and he does do observational comedy in a way which has completely changed the face of modern comedy. I mean, the way in which The Office looks, the way in which all these kind of deadpan, semi-documentary comedies look now, they owe a huge debt to Christopher Guest. And, I mean, I interviewed him for BBC Two, and he is incredibly deadpan and dry and funny in the flesh, and it's really scary speaking to him, because he's just funnier than you're ever going to be. So there's not you, than I'm ever going to be. So obviously it's very hard trying to keep up.
And married to?
He's married to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Quite extraordinary.
And he is, of course, he's the right... Is he not the Right Honourable? He's
got a title.
Yeah, he has. His title is Mr. Jamie Lee Curtis. I think that's his official title. And, and I do like it, and I would encourage people to go and see it. But what I would say is, certainly on first viewing, it isn't Mighty Wind, and it isn't Best in Show, and it's not quite Waiting for Guffman, but it is still pretty good.
Just on the Christopher Guest movie, For Your Consideration, just want to explain the title, because it's a title that it's quite in.
It is, okay.
And if you haven't seen
no, you're quite right.
BAFTA and Oscar-style DVDs, you might not know what on earth he's talking about.
No, I should have explained it, living in this esoteric film world that I live in. Basically, what happens around the award ceremony is one of the most just vulgar things. When people get nominated for awards, or actually in the run-up to nominations, the film companies take out adverts offering films for your consideration. So it says, like, Blood Diamond, for your consideration in all categories. I think, I'm really glad you told me that, because otherwise I wouldn't have thought I was able to consider it in all categories. God, that's really nice. Or Renee Zellweger, for your consideration for Best Actress. I'll consider that. Yes, I think no will be the answer to that. But it's like a war, And it's the most extraordinary thing. People taking out the bigger and bigger adverts. Here's the most brilliant for your consideration. David Lynch recently was campaigning for Laura Dern for his new movie Inland Empire, which is 3 hours long and is very, very esoteric. And he didn't have any money to do a campaign for her. So what he did was he sat on the corner of Hollywood and La Brea with a cow and a sign on the cow which said, "Without cheese, there would be no Inland Empire. Vote for Laura Dern." And he got just as much press coverage for that as all those people taking out For Your Consideration ads. Strangely, however, she didn't get nominated. And I think there's a lesson for us all in there.